Marvel Snapshots came out. The schedule was affected by the pandemic. Our issue came out, and then I think it got stopped. They're all Snapshot. It's based on the Marvel series that Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross did, which is very well known, very popular. And I think this is an anniversary of that project. So Alex Ross is curating a series called Marvels with the Marvels, and Kurt Busiek is curating Marvel Snapshots, which are single issues. The thing about Marvels was that it was a breakdown of like the early Marvel universe, but as seen from the point of view of regular people, a reporter, a photographer, people like that. It was seen through his eyes and the eyes of his family. So it was like all the ancillary events happening around all the major Marvel events, very heavy continuity, very, very, in the know. But so major events that happened in the Silver Age and onto the Bronze Age, I guess, were seen through the eyes of people on the streets, what it was like when these things were happening. It would be like if you had a character watching a Godzilla attack from ground zero, from below, and thinking about everything that happened, but this is just spread out over years and explaining the Marvel universe as people saw it, if it was real, kind of. And the Marvel Snapshots is just continuing on that. It's 6 different stories riffing on Marvel characters and touch points. So Kurt asked us to do a pretty lighthearted story about the girlfriend of the Human Torch from back in the day in the 60s, and what it was like to date a superhero and kind of fall out of that life. But it was also based around his idea of a reunion, a high school reunion, and a kind of where are they now, and a kind of high school story, but also a Johnny Storm, the Human Torch story, about taking parts of his old continuity that kind of don't make sense because they Marvel, again, the same way that I was talking about how Beast of Burden wasn't designed from the beginning. A lot of Marvel comics and DC, a lot of things don't get designed from the first year of a TV show or a comic book. You might not guess what characters are going to be taken to heart by the audience. You don't know that that Fonzie is going to be a hit, and that you should dump Spike and get rid of the other, the Richie Cunningham brother, and you know what I'm saying? Ralph Mouth should have been killed, things like that, but they didn't. So you don't know what's going to take off. You don't know. You have more stuff for your side character. Like Geordi. Is it Geordi? No, whoever the kid is in Star Trek: The Next Generation. You feel like they had a lot more planned for him, but he just didn't click. You know what I mean? And other characters assert themselves. I mean, Wolverine. Wolverine was a character that who knew that he'd become Wolverine? He was a short, angry dude with stupid claws and a really silly costume, which I loved, by the way.
He was a throwaway bad guy because the Hulk went to Canada. Like they just had to come up with the most Canadian bad guy.
And they had a Wendigo, so they had a Wolverine show up, which it could have been the Mountie, or it could have been the
Beaver. The Wolverine almost was
Beaver. It could have been the Maple Leaf, or any of the characters that John Byrne had later on for Alpha Squad. I mean, it could have been the what's the name of that coin? The one that's $2. The two. I can't remember now. But yeah, it could have been the Mackenzie brothers or something like that. It could have been the Slapshot, the hockey boy, and it would have been great if it was the Hanson brothers. But that's a whole. So it wasn't. That stuff wasn't planned as to how it would work out. So if you read the early adventures of the Human Torch, who was being positioned by Stan Lee as the Spider-Man, the other Spider-Man, young, except that he had a secret identity. Dumbest idea on earth, considering the fact that he's named Johnny Storm. His sister is the Invisible Girl. Everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows who the FF is. He lives in town, goes to high school. He's the Human Torch. They know that. So part of it was to explain some of this dumb shit. And I'm like, he burned through people's cars. He acted like a dick. I mean, he was a hothead. That was his character in a nutshell. But those early stories are insane because they all take place in a small town. It's almost like if Beast of Burden was a superhero. They all take place in his small town in Long Island, but every issue they need a supervillain to show up. Why would a supervillain come to like Long Island and just happen to show up where the Human Torch is? And they're the dumbest characters. That's where Paste Pot Pete, the guy who uses glue to stick people, the eel, the plant man who looks really ridiculous in his first, he can make plants do things. I mean, the acrobat, what does he do? He's an acrobat. Holy shit. And these are the comics that we like deify and say, let's go back to these old great, all these dummies are saying, let's go back to these old times. Christ. They'd shit if we went back to Paste Pot Pete and the painter, the evil painter of evil things who painted stuff that came to life. Whatever. But it's fun. So we did this one issue and I was very happy with it. And we got to work with Benjamin Dewey, who we work with on Beast of Burden, who Kurt works with on a series called Autumn Lands, which is where I saw Ben's work with animals, because they're all bipedal anthropomorphic animal humans, like kind of Islands of Dr. Moreau. And he draws beautifully, but he draws beautiful animals, which is very difficult. And we needed somebody like that when Jill was no longer going to work on the book. So yeah, that's the one shot, and that's collected in Marvel Snapshots. Is a hardcover that came out a couple of weeks ago, I guess. We don't have it yet. Hopefully we'll get one because we don't have the comics. Marvel lost track of some stuff when the COVID forced shutdown. So I've only seen the comic. I signed a whole bunch of them. I should have kept one. But there's 6 stories, I think, and they all have Alex Ross covers. And one's a Submariner story in the 40s. Ours is modern. It was really weird trying to acclimate the weird thing about Marvel where, back in the day, JFK was president and then you have Nixon but they've only been here actually for only 7 years. And the Beatles, they hung out with, it was weird to take all those stories and try to shove them together along with a few odd appearances of the Human Torch in retcon stuff that came out a few years ago. It's so weird to work with Marvel real time, or what, I don't know what they even call it, but Kurt knows all this shit and it was his story. We did a script on it and I had a great time working on that, putting in a ton of Easter eggs and dopey things for the fans to see, and if they don't get it, that's fine, it's still background information. I mean, I got to have the Beetle and all these dumb characters, like the asbestos man. Guy dresses up in asbestos, so of course he's got cancer. I think he's dead now in the Marvel universe. So that was cool. We did that about a year and a half ago, and the collection's just come out. People can grab that. And that's what Marvel Snapshots is. Now, I do a job for Marvel every 10 years, apparently. Like I worked for them in 91. And in 2003, I did a bunch of work for them. And then I just missed, but I think I may have just gotten in for the 2010s, the teens. But Kurt hired us for that. Marvel, I don't know if Marvel knows who we are anymore. That was Kurt. So I thank him for that. That was really great.